Hi, my name is Robert Bailey, and this is my Killing Floor 2 level arena. This is the um, third or fourth iteration, I can't remember, but this is the latest update of the last, no, not of the last, of the level. The biggest change currently was because since I got almost all the geometry laid out, was the texturing. I used basic textures included in the editor to still kind of get the feel I wanted with a concrete floor, concrete walls, kind of like a low budget community type arena environment. And then I've added in a bunch of props, or not a bunch of props, but a decent amount of props to kind of give the map more flavor as I continue with playtesting. Um, Not all of the environment is textured. This is not only because of timing, but also because there's a couple weird quirks to the editor I didn't find out until just now. These walls aren't double-sided. If you apply a texture to them, you have to apply a texture on the inside. Um, because of backface coloring, that wall would just be invisible. So a lot of the iteration was putting the second set of walls in, putting the interiors up, making sure things line up, which they still don't all. I can fix that relatively easily, and I'm gonna, rather than do like the full spot test with everything looking like the same orange wall, which makes me miss a lot, I'm gonna be putting textures in to make sure that I can actually see the holes like that, which I need to fix. Um, and and then you have things like, oh, I used the floor texture up here, or I used the floor texture up there, um, and I'm in the process of replacing that with a a floor and a ceiling layer, because otherwise, if I replace the floor texture, I can still walk on top of it. On the second floor, it just I'll look down and see nothing. So, kind of a lame excuse, but it was just something I didn't know. I didn't know about the editor. I didn't know about the quirk until I started putting textures in. So that's been the big obstacle currently, which is why it's kind of half and half. And also it allows me to test out a theme, get a couple people in to play it, and see if they like it, if the theme seems consistent, and then continue building on from there as opposed to going, hey everyone, this is all the texture. Like, it's all textured, it's all great. And people go, oh, this is disgusting. Why would you do this? So still like going through that playtesting process, considering my last couple playtests have been all about making sure that players have a fun time moving through the level. Now it's making sure players have a fun time looking at the level. This area probably got the most additions of anything because the way the like story of the map has changed in my head. It changed from just a basic arena that was kind of just arbitrarily there to something that was used in the event of the zombies as more of a environment for um, kind of a refugee environment. It's like, oh, bring people in here, hold the line here, and we can use all of this space. Not only is that a great excuse that once we use more props, as soon as I find out where like they put the beds and other things hidden, it also lets me it lets me tell more of a story with the map and fit more of a lot of the rest of the themes of the map, where it's burning environments like that up there, kind of a city in ruins during the apocalypse that lets the human players kind of come back and interact in this not post-apocalyptic but very during apocalypse feel. Um, and I realized that I kind of hand waved a lot of the geography from last time, so I try and go over that a little bit more because I thought I had a previous video, but they all kind of ran together. So the upper part of the map is designed to have players move in a loop, but have one loop kind of dead end. So the one over there, I don't know why I put it in the scope. The one over there dead ends in that environment, but that wasn't fun in my initial playtest with. So it has a ramp there to kind of help fix that, but it dead ends into a place where you can still move through, but you'll take some damage. Um, but the zombies kind of force the player through. But the upper floor is definitely going to be more of the deteriorated thing. It's kind of what I imagined where the zombies would have initially broken through, because people never look up, so people wouldn't have noticed, oh, like, the zombies somehow climbed the building and they're doing all these problems up there. And so when it happens, it becomes a much bigger deal, which is why there's holes in the ceiling there. And this ceiling is nicely textured. I still need to put a floor in it. This is where I learned the problem. because I need to put a floor up there for versus mode, so zombie players don't look down and go, "Hey, I'm floating on the sky." Um, they can then have some more interactions with that. But I was like, "Oh crap! I have to redesign all of my interior spaces, or not redesign, but add on to all of them," which was kind of tedious. Um, the but back to like the game flow of the upper tier, it's designed to kind of force players through and force them into environments where it's either where because the bottom floor opens into ice rink, so there's tons of space there. This still has a wall, because I'm not sure if I want to make it a hand railing or something else yet, and I'm gonna mess around. Oh gosh, I want to mess around with more playtests and that. But the bottom floor kind of dead ends into the, or not dead ends, but ends up in this ice rink, which is a big open space, lots of areas to run around in, lots of ways to kite the zombies. And so what I want to do is kind of the opposite upstairs. So there's still lots of space that looks visible, but things like these bleachers add in problems. There's more narrow areas, spaces where the player can't move anywhere, or has less options in how they move through spaces. And that was intentional to have essentially two layers, or I guess two floors of interactivity. Um, the next big thing, the big thing with assets was one complaint I heard was make sure we signpost everything, and some other players going, why the heck are there zombies falling in the sky? I didn't know. So I've added in rubble around where where the holes in the ceiling are, which will be more prominent with skyboxes, but just having more of those layers. As soon as I figure out how skyboxes work, but having more of those interactivity for the player, and then I'm experimenting with the fire up here because I like particle effects. So the fire is a nice, obvious way of going, hey, there's a problem up here, maybe you should look up. But it still involves the player looking up. So the rubble serves as a nice position, and I think that zombie's about to drop down. Yep. No, we're going to run around because it's wave 1, and I can do all this explaining without having to actually fight anything, which is serving to make it a much more pleasant video. Uh, and then, so a lot of other things was replacing, uh, that's new, was replacing a lot of those placeholder dividers with sandbags, kind of experimenting with that. Because, oh, zombies attack from a spot. Let's set up a barrier, or let's set up these spaces to kind of designate off rooms, designate off areas. I turned the ramp over here into a pile of rubble that can be walked on, which will probably replace pretty much every ramp with this type of environment. Still haven't found a good texture for the stairs, though, inside of these, which is kind of holding me off from texturing those. This whole area now has a ton more assets. It has cash register, box, it's a sign you can interact with. There's trash cans in various states of decay, not really decay, but of knocked over state around the map. And it is still in the process of adding in assets, adding in elements. A big change to geography since the last iteration, though, was I thought I was being clever with, oh, I like this. I didn't know I could do that, but I like that layer, so I'm going to keep that in. Oh crap, I just killed that, so I have to run off to make sure I don't die next wave, because that would be obnoxious to die in the middle of the process. So, sorry, that was just a weird surprise with the geography. Learn something new every day. Excuse me. So, oh, okay. So, the big change in geography, if I can get back to that, was these ramps. They just so that it wasn't fun to run around the entire like ice rink to get up to the second floor, to have to go through those places. So by adding in these ramps, which I will probably replace with debris because it's nice and thematic, but I'm keeping right now to keep the flow into like a 1 square space, so I can see how zombies interact with that long term, as opposed to the 2 square space of the rubble. This allows players to go, oh, we're getting overwhelmed, we can run up. It's a lot easier and feels a lot nicer than dying. They still have to navigate the bleachers, which are intentionally kind of problematic, because as anyone who's ever like run through bleachers knows, it really sucks. But it also prevents zombies from flooding the player. And then on the bottom floor, zombies can flood the player from up. They can follow the player, so you might be able to run away, but you only get so far. which is kind of a recurring thing in the game. And then I've put things like airdrops around because hey, there would be supply caches, there would be things that people would bring in as a way of handling their the post-apocalypse would be like let's bring in these resources and try and hold out, and then evidently they get overrun by zombies. Um, then this is not going to go well for me. It's doing so well with the one crawl line, I just had to ruin it. And then, of course, I have this dark element with some of the residue of what would happen with a zombie apocalypse and kind of internment camp. Not, oh god, no, not internment camp. But, very much through on wood. But a kind of refugee camp where everything's kind of gone to hell, and this is what they have to do. Because you can't just, if the bodies are coming back up, you can't just leave them unhandled. And it's dark, kind of depressing and kind of sad, but that's the world of Killing Floor. So I want to make sure I wasn't making something untrue to the rest of the game, and to make sure that my level fits into the already established setting and tone of the game, because otherwise, it's like, why not just make it for a different experience? And especially as it is, they also make a nice cover against the boss fights. For the general aesthetic, I went for a pretty dark environment with concrete, gray walls, and while some of it will likely change as I iterate through, by adding in more splashes of color, using the terrain to add more interesting shades than just gray. Because while the gray palette looks great on the Prism map, not every map needs to be that way. I definitely want to be sure that I'm not making not making my environment just incredibly monotone, which is why these stairs have this orange cut in them. Why like the crepe stands, they're blue and bright, as opposed to a lot of the environment that I'm currently navigating through. And that's also, not only was it, oh, it's a nice placeholder texture, but it's kind of what I imagine, like it's a cheap, kind of run-down community arena that has seen better days. And the kind of environment of like, oh crap, everything is terrible, but then you have something like this generator, which is a little bit brighter, provides a source of light, but it also serves a thematic reasoning of like, why would you use this space? Oh, it has a generator. That's why everyone kind of ran here, because you can keep power going. You have stands, concession stands that are those blocks and things. So you have food, you have water. There's a reason people would come here. And then you have things like this Jumbotron, which is broken from the supports up there, and I'll see if I can get a good angle on it. And so it has its own supports, so that kind of tells a story. I did decide it was a hockey rink mainly because it's a nice ice texture. So I don't have any like sort of environment where it messes with the player's movement, because the already existing snow level doesn't have that, and I just wouldn't find that fun in a game all about precision shooting and navigation. Go, oh, you're slipping and sliding in the biggest open area on the level, because that's not enjoyable. So I'm just assuming the trained military mercenaries are decent at walking on ice and running on ice. So it makes kind of a video game. It's kind of a video gamey reason, but it's more fun than having to slide into Mr. Chainsaw over there, because that's just not fun. So then I've got things like these ads, because Horzine's the big company that also made these zombies. So there's a couple of ads over in the opening area I'll show off. But so it's a wood paneling, because that would be a cheap way of making something puck resistant. It's got kind of like the weird movie poster ads, the cheap stuff, because that's a way of licensing out the space. That was kind of like my thinking throughout it. That rubble prevents a player from falling down there and running up in that space. I just figured because it was right there, I should probably explain it. Doors still weld. I think I've shown this same door welding off in all like the last iterations, but it slows down those zombies. Gives me a little bit more time to talk. There's a couple extra sources of light, and these banners, they don't break. Unlike a lot of sources of light, but it kind of works because, like, oh, Horizon would sponsor this, Horizon would put money into this. Maybe they put stuff in the food. But maybe that's why the zombies came in. But beyond, like, weird arbitrary low reasons, it also serves to break up kind of the monotony of color, to serve to break up the Wall of Gray once I get more textures put in and get the texture mapping fixed. There's things like tipped over cash registered. So the entire like point of this and like this trash can with its I really wish they just stopped and leave me alone. With its tipped over trash. I wanted to make an environment that was, it's like, this was what people tried to keep going in, and it didn't work. It's kind of, so the tone of the maps kind of changed from the, oh, look how playful this is, to a, oh, this is kind of, this really sucks. Because, well, this existence, in the game universe kind of sucks, and there's not really a good way of handling it. Um, and so that was the big thing, was kind of like, so adding in these assets is kind of like driving that point home, and also that's what the assets and the direction of Killing Floor allow me to do. They don't really allow for a light preppy map unless I were to make a ton of my own assets, which I just frankly don't have the time to do right now. So I'm going with the tone, and it's kind of working for me. I'm enjoying the wrong word, but I'm liking the design challenge that mapping my original idea to these aesthetics is having. I'm adding in some more architectural traits, like supports on the walls. There's those on the opposite column as well, making sure I have connections for everything, so those supports broke from those supports. Stop hitting me. I should be safe here because I think they're both melee enemies. This currently doesn't have zombies mapping to it because the only real danger would be ranged enemies, um, which shows as a nice breather and also means that I can narrate for a bit. Um, Unless they jump down, in which case that would be fun interactions. So that was kind of my thinking for it, and kind of my thinking behind this iteration was because I patched what complaints I was getting about the layout, so getting stuck down here, adding ramps, getting stuck up there, adding ramps. Turns out adding ramps is a really nice solution for everything. A lack of cover, which I was able to improve upon with assets like those, because, well, players can hide behind them. Um, and then people, it's like, well, this super, like, stark deco art style kind of isn't working for me because it's orange and blue everything. Now it's adding terrain, so it'll be gray everything. But being able to then play with people off of this environment and get feedback off of that, and then continue iterating the textures. So I'm hoping by next iteration, texturing's good. At least in much better at least everything will have a texture. Hoping by the next iteration, which leaves the last iteration purely for lighting, maybe adding in some curved surfaces, which would bring me kind of the end of this project's time frame, with, I believe, about an extra week for polish. So that's kind of the state of the map right now and the state of where I'm planning on going. And yeah, so the nice kind of, yeah, community arena turned into an, oh god, everything's gone to crap community arena. Um, so it fits with the rest of the game, even if it doesn't make this environment particularly fun to run through. Then again, when you have levels of a prison and Resident Evil manor that like flayed people and all sorts of other things, it's not exactly a unrealistic expectation to have a map with this type of environment and this type of tone for Killing Floor. So I'm happy with the way it's turning out. I'm happy with the way the aesthetics are helping it, and I'm now that I know the latest quirk of the editor, I'm happy with how I'm going to move forward to fix that problem. So this has been the latest iteration of KF Arena, and I would like to thank you for your time, and see you next week.